Hello and welcome to On the Rocks, a BRTFC Supporters Club podcast where we discuss all things BRTFC, and I'm your host, Liam Goodley. This broadcast and our media team are proudly sponsored by Mitchell's Travel. Mitchell's Travel, not just travel, book a tailor-made holiday for you and your family with Mitchell's Travel today. Call them on 01243 939 555 or visit their website at themitchells.notjusttravel.com for the latest offers for all. Be sure to quote Rocks 1883 to help the football club in the same process. As your personal travel experts and our official travel partners, be sure to let their friendly team know your needs from your holiday today. Mitchell's Travel is the proud sponsor of On the Rocks. Today on the show, I'm joined by a former Rocks centre-back and fan favourite. He also represented Havant, Newport Isle of Wight, Eastbourne Borough and Selsey. He's now playing for Lavant in the West Sussex County League. Welcome to the one and only John Price. Thanks for joining me, John. How are you?
Hi, Liam. Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. Life's good at the moment, apart from obviously the COVID-19 pandemic, but life's great. So thanks for chatting to me and looking forward to the interview.
Yeah, it's really great to hear from you again, John. And how is life for you right now? I mean, it's been a while since you put on the green and white strip, and I know you're involved heavily still in football, but from Bogner's point of view, we haven't seen you obviously on the pitch for us for quite a while.
No, I think the last game I was involved in, Liam, was the Rocks Legends game against Glasgow Rangers. That was the last time I pulled the strip on, and that was good fun. It was a very, very hot day, and a few of us hadn't played for a while. So, so that was the last time. But I still get down to try and watch games as often as I can. But life's good. Working extremely hard and as you said, still trying to play football at the ripe old age of 52.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that as well a bit later, John. Obviously, you continued playing, which is great. But looking back on your career, John, I've found that initially you were in Brighton's youth setup and even represented the reserve side in your earlier footballing days. How was this for you initially?
Yeah, well, I mean, as every youngster really that got into football wanted to be a professional, and I was lucky enough to be signed by Brighton and come through the youth system there and get into the reserves. All this was at that time where you could still sort of dual sign for another club as well. So I was involved with the Rocks at that time as well, coming through their youth setup as well. But playing at the Albion and obviously being involved there was a sort of almost a dream come true really, and became very close to sort of getting a new contract. But the manager unfortunately got the sack, and new manager comes in, sweeps lots of sweeping changes, and before I knew it, I found myself out of the Albion and going on to try and find another pro club from there.
Yeah. What was the age that you were at when you played for the Seagulls, and who did you look up to whilst you were there at Brighton?
So I joined the youth team as a schoolboy at the age of about 12, 13, I think it was, and came through with a lot of good players at the time. But I mean, there were some really, really good pros there at the time. People like Alan Biley, Brian Horton, people that went on to have, extremely good careers, Steve Foster, to name a few. So they were the players that you looked up to try and get into the team around. But yeah, I was there for about 4.5 years, through schoolboys into the reserves, as I say. So that was, a good time and learned a lot from a lot of good players.
Yeah, it seems like a good club, and obviously now they're on the up. They're did a very another good result the other day, Brighton. Nowadays, and during your time with Bogner, you're always a no-nonsense defender, as I remember, John. But was this always the case growing up as a footballer? What other positions did you play at? And if so, what were your favourites at the earlier stages of your career?
I was never the biggest growing up. I'm still only 5'10" now. So to be a centre back, everyone was telling me I was too small. So quite often I got pushed out to right back. But it was always about me being a centre back. Really, I think I preferred that position. I seemed to be able to jump quite well and was pretty dominant in the air. So that was pretty much the position I liked playing. But I've always been a defender. I've never been anywhere else. So defence has always been the place I wanted to be. And that competition and that sort of, I had that, seemed to have that aggression and that ability to sort of desire to win, to sort of almost try and make sure no one scored against us. And that was really, really my drive, to make sure that I was tending to mark the best centre forward and trying to make sure they couldn't score.
Yeah. What was the big difference you found whilst with Brighton, going from youth football to then moving on to the reserves, like you say? What were the differences most noticeable to you on the pitch?
Well, I think going into the reserves, I mean, at Brighton we had quite a young squad. I mean, we only really had one senior pro that played for the reserves at the time, which was Graham Mosley, which was goalkeeper. So most of our reserve team were always made up of first-year pros, so sort of 17, 18-year-old kids. And one game sticks in my mind especially, which was we played midweek in the reserve league, and we played against QPR at Loftus Road when it was still the AstroTurf. And it was really old style AstroTurf. So it's the bumpy, hard, rip your legs to pieces AstroTurf. And they played Liverpool on the Saturday and hadn't played very well and got beaten quite heavily. And I remember we turned up and they put their full first team out against us. Okay, so people like Peter Hucker, Wayne Faraday, Michael Robertson, Joey Jones, John Gregory, all those type of players that had made massive careers for themselves at QPR had turned out against us on the Wednesday afternoon. And we did really well. And we were 0-0 after about 75 minutes and playing really well. And we've matched them and it all looked really good. But I think then just fitness took over and a bit of quality and a bit of class. I think we eventually lost the game about 4-0. So that was one game that sort of comes to mind. But then going into the reserves, you'd often get pitched against players that had just been signed for clubs. So they're just new members to the club. I remember we played at St Andrews one midweek. And Birmingham City had just signed Steve Daly for £1 million, okay, which at the time was a huge amount of money. You know, it was a massive amount of money at the time when I was playing. And he put him straight into the team against us, and you could see that he had that ability and that class. But we actually did all right, and we actually drew that game 0-0 with a team full of youngsters again, just literally 17, 18-year-old kids, and as I say, the one senior player. But that was quite normal for Brighton at the time. That's how they did the reserves. The young kids got the chance, and the senior pros tend to sort of just be in and around the first team.
And what year was this when you were in the reserves?
Oh, now you're testing me. So I must have been 17, 18. So now I've got to try and do my maths. Okay, so 17 now, I'm 52 now, so it's 30 odd years ago, 35 years ago. So yeah, so we're talking 1985, early 80s, around that sort of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I, as I say, I mean, I got in the reserves there at about 16, 17. I played a few reserve team games. So they tend to give the youngsters a bit of a go. So 17 would have been about that time, so early 80s.
Okay. It would soon be the case that Bognor would snap you up. John, I'm interested to know what was the loan. What was it? Was it a loan spell or initially, or were you signed by the Rocks at the time? Were there other clubs between representing Brighton and Bognor?
No, so I was actually, I came out of the youth football straight into Bognor, so into their under-18 setup. But we tended to go in quite young at that time. So I joined Bognor at about 15 years old and was playing under-18s football. And obviously I'd still been signed for Brighton at the time. So I came in and you could dual register at the time. So it wasn't a problem. You could sign for a pro club at the time as a schoolboy. You could still be signed for your non-league club. So there was no issue there. So I'd play sort of for the youth team for Brighton on a Saturday morning. I'd play for the reserves midweek on a Wednesday, and then I'd play for Bognor under-18s on a Sunday. And then obviously when I started to get into the Rock setup as such, it was a little bit more complicated because then obviously playing for the Brighton youth team on the Saturday morning and going and playing for a senior side, a men's team on a Saturday afternoon turned out to be quite difficult. But I did that a few times actually. I played Saturday morning, then went and played Saturday afternoon, but I wasn't meant to, but I didn't really say too much about that.
Is that allowed nowadays, John? Is that a thing of the past, or?
I don't think so. I think most of the time now, the kids are sort of the youngsters are only allowed to sort of maybe play 1 year up. So, I mean, that was quite an unusual thing. I mean, I was playing 3-4 years up on myself quite a lot of the time. So that had been quite a normal thing for me. I'd always been physically quite strong, although not the biggest, and sort of tested myself against a lot of sort of players older. And then, when I got into senior football, so I was mostly 15, just turned 16 when I made my senior sort of debuts as such. So, that's still quite young, and you don't see many people doing that now even. So, but so that was it was quite normal at that time. It wasn't anything unusual.
No. So what was the year that you joined Bognor, and how did this come to pass?
Well, I think I must have joined Bognor as about a 15-year-old. So that must have been early 80s, so 82, 83. And I remember we came out of our normal youth football as such, and Bognor then did an under-18 side. They didn't have the setup like the markets do now, where you've got children that can go all the way through. We came in and Bognor tended to do an under-18 side, and that was it. So we came into like the Hampshire Youth League, and I must have been 15. But we had teams in the Hampshire Youth League at the time, people like Portsmouth and Southampton, who put their junior sides, their under-18 sides, into that league. And we used to compete against them really, really well. So we're playing against pro clubs. We had a good youth setup, and we said some good players there. And at the time, I was surprised a lot more didn't come through, maybe and make it through to the first team. But it just shows you there's a big jump, there's a big gap between youth football and senior football.
So was there a league in reserve football at the time, or is it just literally friendly matches against other clubs?
So what the pro club you mean with the Albion?
Yeah, was that friendlies or was that?
No, there's a reserve league, but they used to play it on a Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay, so it used to free up players that then could still be involved with the first team and senior sides on a Saturday. So it used to be a Wednesday afternoon league. They used to call it the combination league. So, and that would get teams anywhere through. I mean, I think the furthest we went north was up to the Midlands. So teams like Aston Villa and Birmingham, but all the London clubs and the clubs more south from there. So teams like Arsenal, Chelsea, West Ham, we all had teams out on the Wednesday afternoon. So.
That sounds great, John. And I'm interested to know what your first match for the Bognor senior team was. And can you describe your feelings and your memories from that day?
Right, so I think it was a senior cup tie. If I remember rightly, I think I've just turned 16. And it was a midweek game. Okay, and I think we played Peacehaven. And as I say, it was a senior cup, so Sussex senior cup game. And I'd only been training a few times with the first team, and Jack had basically turned around and said to me, right, I was going to start. It was under the lights at the Lane, and I was going to play fullback. So I played right fullback the first night. I think we won the game really comfortably. It might have been 6-7, maybe even 8, I think, on the night, but I can't remember the exact game. But yeah, excitement. I was always pretty confident, but excitement, and couldn't wait to get started, really, and show people what I could do.
Was there any nerves there on that day, John?
I've always been quite a confident person, and I think that comes from sort of like a drive and a focus to make sure I did the best I could possibly do, and I didn't like failing. So going into a new environment, it was about sort of almost trying to prove yourself that you desire to be there, and you deserve to be there. And at the time, I mean, there were some huge players at Bognor, some incredible names. So for me, it was about going in that dressing room and actually having the confidence to sit there and go, do you know, I actually do belong here, and I needed to show players that I belong there. So for me, always nervous before a game, but I think they were good nerves because I think they really sort of helped me focus my mind and make sure that I didn't go out on the pitch not focused, and to make sure that I had that will to win and that desire to win all the time.
Yeah, it sounded like you're very confident at the time, John, and I think that showed on the pitch. But when you were with Bognor, the majority of your career, obviously your prime there, what are your favourite memories from those times at Bognor?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I had some great memories at Bognor, and I think the game that sticks out for me was the Exeter game at home in the FA Cup. I mean, I was still quite young. I was still a young lad. I just remember just breaking into the team around that time and sort of winning the game 2-1 and then being able to watch it on Match of the Day in the evening.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get the highlights of Match of the Day in the evening. And I remember we were 2-1 up and Simon Steele played in goal. And right at the death, I mean, I can't even remember the extra player, but he had an unbelievable shot. And we thought, oh no, it's going, as you sort of turn around, you think, that's going straight in the top corner. That's in. And then I don't know how he managed it. Steely all of a sudden came from nowhere and just touched it over the bar. And I just remember at the end of the game, everyone ran to Simon and jumped on Simon because that save basically got us through to the next round. And then sort of the next round, I think we played Cambridge, and we were 0-0 right up until about the 85th minute. And we lost the game 1-0, but we're in the hat for the third round draw right up until the 85th minute. So the FA Cup ties always stick out in my mind at Bognor because we always seem to do really well. We had some good cup ties there. But also, I mean, I think with Bognor, it's different to any of the other clubs I've ever been at. It's got such a feel of sort of family and unity around it. Okay, and I think that's why I've always felt of Bognor as my club. And I remember even then, you know, my dad helping to replace the seats, which are now being taken out. Okay, but they were the old Wembley seats. Okay, and I remember my dad being down there, and you know, everybody just used to pull together. Okay, and just make the ground as good as it could possibly be. And yeah, so that family feel as well, it always sticks with me. You know, I still think it's there today, you know, as a club.
Yeah, definitely, John. And it's interesting to know that you were involved. I wasn't aware that you were involved in that FA Cup team, but that's great.
Yeah.
And obviously beating Exeter, that was a massive thing for the club, wasn't it, at the time? And then going
Yeah,
on to playing Cambridge, I mean, just massive game after massive game.
yeah. I mean, and that for me as a young player, you know, was a real thrill. You know, to sort of be involved and sort of like to be involved in those big games. You know, and they were big games. You know, for non-league clubs, they're huge games because they're so important financially for clubs at Bogner's level. You know, to make sure they can get through and get some of that prize pot that's there. You know, at the time it helps keep the club afloat. So yeah, that was really good memories, really fond memories.
So, John, were you also involved with the County Cup? The County Cup run, obviously in the 80s, we had a big run. I think 5 years, 5 seasons.
Yeah. I was involved in that team.
Yeah.
So in and around that team, playing in the Senior Cup in the finals and bits and pieces like that. So yeah, as I say, that squad was an incredible squad. So I was really lucky to be part of that.
Yeah, great area for the Rocks. I'm interested to know, John, how many goals did you net for the Rocks? And I understand you're a defender, so I get it if there wasn't that many.
No, honestly, I always used to go out for all corners and free kicks. As I say, for a little guy, I wasn't too bad in the air. So I scored a few. I took penalties for a little while. I always remember there was a game where we'd had a couple of penalties and had been missed, and I always took the penalties in the under-18 team. So, and then there was a few senior players that sort of didn't want to take this next penalty, and I was like, I'll do it. So Jack's like looking at me like, you know, like, who's this kid? You know, sort of, you know, saying to take penalties. And I think from that moment on, I took penalties for the first team mostly for, I don't know, 3 seasons, I think it was. I think I only ever missed one. But I think I netted about 8 goals in my first spell at the Rocks. And then I came back for a season later on in my career. And I think I got 4 that season as well. So I scored a few for a centre-half. I wasn't too bad. I'd normally net between, I don't know, 8 and 10 goals a season. So I wasn't too bad.
I suppose it means more as a defender when you score a goal, because I think for strikers, they're there to do that. They're there to score goals. But for a defender to score, you know, it's even more of a bonus.
I think for me, I mean, I liked the fact that I looked at it that going up for corners and set pieces, as I say, I was 5'10", so you get all the big centre halves who'd be picking up all the tall lads, and I'd be going up against the fullback and thinking, I've got a great opportunity here because I was quite decent in the air. So, so for me, it was almost like a thrill. I love scoring goals. Okay, and penalties for me were a free shot from 12 yards, and I'm thinking if I can't beat people from 12 yards and a free shot at goal, we all know that there's pressure involved, but yeah, for me, penalties were an added bonus, you know, to be able to take them as well. So
I'm interested to know what the secret is to taking a good penalty, then, John, because some people like to place it, some people like to blast it. What is your view?
So for me, I was always a side foot placing. I felt if I couldn't get enough power in from 12 yards to beat the keeper, we know keepers go early, but realistically, I had a method. I'd keep my run up the same. Okay, I'd keep my striking the ball the same. I'd go the same way. Okay, and as I say, I only missed one, so it wasn't too bad. So it's don't change your mind. I think everyone always says it, don't change your mind.
No.
I missed one in the Senior Cup final for Eastbourne Borough, and I always remember that against Crawley. And as I'm running up, I changed my mind and went the other way. The keeper saved it, but it wasn't my best penalty. And for some reason, I don't know why, I decided to change my mind that day, and I missed it. And it was like, and that was in the final. So
you always remember that one, John?
Well, you're always going to remember the ones you miss, but especially in a cup final, in a penalty shootout, you know, to win the trophy. So yeah, that always sticks in your mind.
So the County Cup to you, John, was that a big thing for the club? I know it's seen nowadays as a smaller cup, but there's still a lot of pride in it. But at the time for you, was it a big deal?
I think it was a huge deal because I think at the time, I'm maybe speaking a little bit wrongly here, but I think at the time the County League was mostly better than what it is today. Okay, in my opinion, that's only my opinion. Okay, but I think there were 4 or 5 teams in the county league that would always give you a really, really good game, and teams like Burgess Hill and teams like that were still involved in the county league at the time, and teams like Stenning and Southwick at the time, they were really good sides. And so even if you pulled a county league side, you weren't guaranteed to get through. So for us to have a run like we did, where we won sort of 5, out of 6, I think it was, in that early 80s period, just showed that we actually, we were a very good side, and we had some good teams, teams like Crawley and Whitehawk and Brighton always had good teams as well. So for you to get through and to win those games, you had to be really on your mettle. So, so I think it was, a big thing for the club, because it's always nice to win a bit of silverware, and winning leagues and promotions is very, very difficult. So, when you can get a cup as well, I was lucky enough to be involved in the AC, what used to be the old AC Delco Cup. Okay, and when we won that as well, I was on the bench that night with another young lad called John Gray, and we were lucky enough to be involved in that run, where we won that cup as well. So I've been lucky enough to pick up a bit of silverware for the Rocks over the years. So that was really quite nice.
It's good. I know the AC Del, so that was the old. Was that the old League Cup? Wasn't
That's
it?
right. Yeah.
So
we played at Windsor and Eton, and I think we beat Hendon on the night. So so it was nice to win that trophy.
In your long career, John, you've come up against and played with some top players over the years. Who would you say is the best players and you played with, and the best players you played against over the years?
That's such a tough question, because even at non-league level, you play with so many good players, and people underestimate non-league players, and there's lots and lots of players that could have easily played and had very, very good careers over the years with a little bit of luck. But I suppose a few that spring to mind, when I left Brighton, I went to Southampton for a short period, and I was in the same side as Alan Shearer and Matt Letizia, so they were incredible players. You could just see they had absolute class about them. Then I remember Kevin Phillips gave me an absolute runaround when he was at Baldock at the time, and I was playing for Havant, and I think he'd scored 4 by half time, and was just an incredible player, really, really good player. But some of the non-league players that stick out for me, people like when I started at Bognor, so people like Graham Mariner. We had Joe Blotchell, who was an incredible centre forward, who came over and played for us for a few seasons, and that really should have been really, really top level. But people like the Pullens, Russell Burtonshaw, people like that, Dave Paul, all players with pro backgrounds that were playing, for Bognor at the time. Another couple really that stick out as well. There was a lad called Gary Green, who I played with. He played at Worthing, never played at Bognor, unfortunately. But yeah, Gary Green I played with at Havant and Newport Isle of Wight, and he should have been a top pro, had everything. And the other one, which people always say, okay, but later on in my career, I played with Birmingham when I came back to Bognor, and people will say it time and time again, Birmingham should have played pro at a top level for a long time. So he was another great lad to be around and in the dressing room. But yeah, as I say, so many top players. I could go on and I could name player after player after player that you think about, and you just think, these guys were incredible on, around the non-league scene and around the pro circuit. But yeah, I suppose to name a few, there you go. There's a few there for you.
Yeah, some great names there, John. And talking of great players, who would you say you looked up to as a child and budding footballer in your?
So growing up, I'm a big Man United fan. My family have heritage up in Didsbury, so that's where my dad comes from. So up in Manchester. So I was always a Red. So players like when I was growing up, people like Brian Robson, Steve Coppell were the players I looked up to. People like, I suppose defenders like Arthur Albiston and players like that. I was actually lucky enough to play in a Vets game for Man United, and I played again with these guys. So, but at Bognor, Graham Mariner, the Pullen twins, okay, because they helped me so much when I came into the first team. You sat in that dressing room and you sort of sat there and your head was down and you're like, sort of, shit, these players are, sorry, excuse my French there, these players are, some incredible players here. I'm sat around that are really, really top names. But they were really down to earth and really wanted to help me succeed. So people like Graham and Mick and Paul, Dave Paul, they were like players that I really, really looked up to when I was a youngster. that, you came in and you got on with the job because you knew they knew what they were talking about, so you'd listen. So you just got on and really, really listen to them.
Yeah, they're top names there, John, and obviously other Bognor legends that have put on the boots for and been really successful with the club. But I'm interested to know what would you consider as your biggest achievement in football so far?
When you say so far, I don't think I've got many more to go.
I think you've got more years in you, John.
I think one more year, and I think that's me done. So, as we've been talking about, Liam, I've been really, really lucky that I've won quite a lot of silverware, cup wins, senior cup wins, not just in Sussex but in Hampshire as well. When I was playing for Newport and Havant, we won the senior cups there. I suppose you look back and you look at winning the league as the ultimate for any footballer, because that's done over a whole season. You've not just got to win 4 or 5 games, you've got to play exceptionally well all season. So I suppose winning the league when I was at Newport is an incredible achievement. Getting promoted, obviously with any club, when you get promoted, it is like something really, really special. But something that sticks out for me, which is something a little bit different, I suppose, is I was lucky enough to be selected for the Sussex representative side as a youngster. So they used to run an under-18 Sussex side. And I played for that side as a 14-year-old. So I got selected as a 14-year-old to play for the under-18s. And then I went on to play in the next 4 seasons, that I was eligible, 26 games, which they think will never be beaten because they've now got an under-16 side. So if you get selected for the under-16s, that counts as the under-16s. So for me, I think something like that would stick out. I mean, I ended up with a record-breaking cap and silver salver and everything like this because they don't think that record will ever be beaten. So that's quite something a bit unique. So as a young footballer, that sticks in my mind as well. So something like that, I suppose, was something a bit different.
Yeah, all brilliant achievements, John. We all know that you like to get stuck in on the pitch with the tackles, but this must mean sometimes you get injured. What are the worst injuries you've had over the years?
I've been really lucky with injuries, and I'm touching some wood as we speak about that. Most of my injuries have been sort of superficial. So as a little guy, I mean, I tended to pick up stuff like broken noses and cut eyes and black eyes and stuff like that. But they never really seem to bother me too much. You get on with it and you carry on playing and just keep going. But I suppose one thing that sticks in my mind, I came back for my second spell at Bognor just after I left Eastbourne, and came back and was playing exceptionally well. And I was mostly playing as well as I think I'd ever played football because I had the experience, I had the knowledge, I had the fitness level. And I remember, I think we were away at Hendon, and I pulled my hamstring. And as an older player, that took a hell of a long time to heal properly. And when I came back, I never felt I really got back to the level I was playing at. So that one's always one that's sort of niggled, and I can always feel it if I don't warm up properly. That sort of hamstring tear was mostly the worst. But as I say, I've always been lucky that little bits and pieces, like a few broken bones here and there and stuff like that, really. But that was the worst injury, I think, because that really did affect me. And I mostly tried to come back too quickly because, as every player, you want to be playing football, and you sort of try and rush back. But that was one that I could never rush. I had to really give it some time to heal.
Yeah, no, that's. I know the hamstrings, any muscle sort of related injury, tendon-related injury, they're usually the worst, aren't they, in terms of affecting your overall game when you do return to football?
Yeah, I think you have to listen to the people who know what they're talking about, the physios and the rehab teams. But I'm sure you'll say, every footballer will say the same thing, that you always try and come back too quickly. You always think, oh, that's okay. And you can almost like try and pull the wool over the physio's eyes and say, yeah, that's fine. And then you come back and it's not until you have to make that last tackle or that sprint or that turn or that run that you then feel it again. And you know yourself that you're not 100%, but at my age, I think I was mostly 36, maybe 37, and thinking of mostly being my last season at that level, I wanted to play as many games as I could, at that highest level I could possibly play. So, yeah, so you tend to rush back, and that's maybe not the best thing to always do.
Yeah. You would often play for Bognor as centre-back, but what would you say was your strongest position over the years? Would it be centre-back?
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. It's a position I love playing. It's a position that lots and lots of people told me I was too small to play there. You know, as being only 5'10", you tend to get a lot of the big guys tend to be 6 foot plus. But it was a position I loved playing. It was a position I felt that I could see the game, I could help organise, I could help, you know, the best, you know, possibly for the team there. I've always been quite a vocal organiser, so I could see everything from that position. And I suppose I liked being that sort of underdog a little bit of being the small guy and everyone look at you and think, well, you're not going to win many headers, but I didn't lose too many in my time, so I tended to be all right in the air. So so when you come up against that 6'2", 6'3", 6'4" centre forward who thinks he's going to actually have a field day, and all of a sudden he's got this little guy that's jumping all over him and winning the headers, he doesn't tend to like it. So for me, without a doubt, centre back was my position. As I said earlier in my career, played at full back and as a holding midfield player, but for me, centre back was always the one.
Do you believe they put too much emphasis on physicality now than they did perhaps 20 years ago?
I think it's always been the case. I think even when I was a kid, I mean, I got released by the pro clubs for saying I wasn't big enough, and yet went on to play a lot of games at a very good level as a centre back. And I think it's sometimes overlooked that if you can read the game and you've got that ability to be able to jump and win headers anyway, you know, I read the game quite well, so I tended to be in a position that didn't mean that I had to be really, really physical with a lot of people because I tend to be there first before they were there. So, but I think nowadays, I think especially in the pro game, I think it's all about physicality. You still have to have technique and everything like that, but they are definitely looking at more athletes and making sure that those players are right at the top end. But yeah, that's the way it is. I mean, I enjoy playing centre back and I still do to this day. So
yeah, that's great, John. And away from football, what other sports do you enjoy, if any? And do you keep an eye on other sports on TV and other media?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I obviously when I was younger playing football at that level, that takes up sort of 10 months of the year. You know, people think it's just a football season, but you don't. You carry on training and so you don't tend to be able to play too many other sports. But I like all sports. Keen cricketer, like cricket during the summer now because I get 2 periods. I get a cricket season and a football season now. Because when you play at a lower level, you don't have that big pre-season, all the friendlies and everything that comes with it. So I play cricket over at Eastergate in the summer league there. Play wicket keeper, so I've got a few dodgy fingers to broken bones with the ball in them. So, but any sport really, I'm keen to do any sport. I've never really sort of not tried anything. I'm lucky enough to live on the coast, so quite often go out kayaking and out. I live in Emsworth, so out and around the bay there. We use the water sports there quite a lot. So yes, that's nice.
Seems to be becoming more and more popular, surfing and other wind sports on the sea. I know they're doing more in my hometown, Littlehampton. They're building a lot of new facilities because the waves are very good. So they're looking at doing more surfing related sports. And I think windsurfing is one of those key sports.
Yeah. I think the one I'm next due to try is paddleboarding. So the one where you stand on top of the board and I'm sure I'm going to get wet because balance-wise, I'm sure I'm going to fall in, but we'll give it a go and see how it goes.
Yeah. Who was when you look back at your playing days at Bognor, John, who was the biggest joker you'd say in the dressing room?
Oh, we've had a few, I must admit. I mean, the dressing room's a strange environment, and we've had some really, really funny guys in there. People that stand out, I suppose. When I first came in, David Poole tended to be the joker in the team. So Paulie was a really funny lad, always pulling pranks on people. My second time round, I had people like Jody Rowlands and Guy Rutherford. They were super funny guys, And then away from Bognor, I suppose people, one lad that springs to mind that I played with at numerous clubs, there was a lad called Ben Buckland, who I played with at Havant and at Newport. And I even brought Ben over to Pagham when I was at Pagham because he's such a funny lad and makes the dressing room such a really good place to be, but could play football as well. All these lads I've mentioned, it wasn't just about them being in the dressing room being funny. They're all good footballers, all top footballers. So, yeah, so that I suppose they spring to mind, those lads there.
It's important to have characters in the dressing room, isn't it, as well as the skill on the pitch, but you've got to have those people that can pick you up, particularly after a loss.
Yeah, I think most players will, how can I say, deal with things in different ways, but you tend to have you'd have the serious players in the dressing room, the ones that just want to come and play your football, win your game, go home, and then you'd have your your ones that were really intense. I mean, I suppose I came into that category where I was the intense player that, it was all focus for me. But then you needed the other lads. You needed people like Jody and like Guy that were, just naturally funny guys, okay, and came in and you could have all this built up tension and everything in the dressing room, and they'd do something really ridiculous or make some comment, okay, and before you know it, the whole dressing room, and that helps bond a team. And a team where you're going to be together with like 20, 25 lads over a season, you need that, because you're going to get uptight with people and you're going to get frustrated with people that you're around, 2, 3, 4 times a week. You spend almost as much time with them as you do your family.
Yeah.
So you need those players to bring that atmosphere down a little bit. So and they were good at that. They were really good at that.
Talking of teammates, John, do you keep in touch with them, and which ones in particularly do you keep in touch with?
So I'm really lucky. I've stayed in touch with a lot of my ex-playing colleagues and people like that. But I'm going to give one lad a shout out, because he started up so when all the shutdown started, a lad called Darren Robson, who had played at Worthing and played a lot of football all over at Farnborough and Aldershot and places like that, started up a Facebook page, and it was the ex-non-league players. So it was aimed at non-league players. And what's happened there is we've ended up with lots and lots of clubs and players that knew each other back in the day and played against each other and had that rivalry, that have actually now got back in touch again. And it's been incredible to sort of see the players and the calibre of players that were playing that are actually now back in touch with each other, and talking about reunions and talking about getting back together, even if it's just for a beer, not so much a game as such, but just getting back in touch and talking about that. But I suppose in my playing days, people like Jody and somebody like Darren Pearce, who was a Bognor as well. Darren's a good mate of mine, so yeah, we're still in touch, and we still talk regularly. So football tends to have that thing about a community that you tend to stay in touch with those type of players.
Yeah, after talking to Burmy, he's keen to get all the Bognor players together. I think the ex-Bognor players together and get them either meet up or do something, because I think he misses that side of it, the camaraderie side of it.
I think there was a match that last year we were meant to be sponsoring, and Dallas White had sorted out, and we were meant to be all coming down as ex-Rocks, and we were sponsoring the game. And we got together quite a good crew, and it would have been really, really good fun. But I think the trophy match got rescheduled.
That's right.
That meant Bognor were away that week then, that we were meant to be sponsoring the game. So I know that's still in the pipeline. So I think that will happen. And yeah, I think try and get as many players together. I think that would be really good fun.
That sounds really good, John. Hope that happens soon. And I've been asking the same question for all fans and all players, but what do you love most about Bognor Regis Town Football Club?
For me, I think it's a club which sticks in your heart once you're there and accepted. And I think I was always accepted as a player and at the club by the supporters. And I think the supporters are a big thing at the club, because I think what they always did, I was never the most technical footballer in the world, and I'll always say this to everybody. I wasn't the best footballer in the world. Okay, I wasn't the most technical. Didn't have super amount of skill. But what I did have, I had a desire to win. Okay, and I think every time I went on the pitch for the Rocks, I think I showed that. And I think the fans appreciate that. I think if the fans see that you're a trier and you try your best and you're giving actually everything for the shirt, I think you're accepted by the club. So for me, the supporters are a massive part of that. And also, it's not just about you as a player, it's about you as a player and a family around that as well. So your family are accepted. So once my family, I mean, my dad and my mum and my partners and everybody have always been accepted at the football club. So it's not just about you being at the club, it's about them being accepted at the football club as well. So hopefully that makes sense to people, but that family feel around the football club that isn't just about you as a player, it's about you as a whole family. And I think you never lose that. I think, I still go back to watch games now, and I always feel like I'm welcomed back, so that's a massive thing for me.
Yeah, the club's obviously renowned for being very welcoming. But in your opinion over the years, John, who would you say was your favourite partner in defence for the Bognor team?
I think, I've been lucky enough to play against play with lots and lots of players. So, but a couple that spring to mind. Kev Murphy was a great footballer Okay, really, really good footballer, sweet left foot. I think Graham Mariner sticks out for me. So Graham, as a player, was there and established when I came into the team, and I was a young lad. And I play alongside Graham quite a lot over my years. But for me, it wasn't just about the match time with him. It was about what we did afterwards in training. We'd stay out longer in training. You know, maybe Graham and I would just come off to one side and we'd do a bit of work and he'd pass on a bit of advice. Okay, and so to me, he would always give me that little bit extra. But boy, was he a player as well. He could play as well. You know, and yeah. So I think Graham sticks out for me definitely.
It sounds like he went the extra mile to help the younger players at the time.
Yeah, I think Graham and I bonded anyway. I think it was we had quite a good relationship anyway. But I think, in fairness, in the team that we had at that time, I think you could say that about all the players. I think all the players would accept you coming in if they knew that you had the right attitude, and it was definitely about an attitude. You know, you had to come into the dressing room and they wouldn't suffer fools gladly. If you came in and thought you were above them, you were going to be out of the dressing room pretty quick because you weren't going to succeed. But if you came in and wanted to learn, yeah, they'd really help you out.
Yeah, sounds good, John. I've seen you at quite a few games myself recently at Nyewood Lane. Is it safe to say you still keep an eye on what's happening with Bognor?
Yeah, I mean, they're my non-league club. You know, as I said earlier, you know, it's a club I always look out for. I love coming down and watching games because all the way through they try and play football the right way. You know, even sometimes it doesn't give them results, but they still try and play the right way. It's a great place to come down to the club. And as I say, I always feel like it's a club where I'm welcome back. You know, I can walk in, I can see supporters from years and years and years ago when I was playing, and they always turn around. The comment is always, "Pricey, got your boots? We could do with you out there." And it's like, you know, I'm old and fat now, and I'm never going to play at that level. But you know, that's always quite nice to feel that you made an impression on somebody that they actually look at you and think, you know, I remember you when you're playing. So that's quite nice. So yeah, I always like coming down to watch.
I know for a fact all the fans always like it when they see ex-players come back, and even if they're just watching the game or have their own initiative coming in, doing an event or whatever, they always like to see them. So that's a shout out to all players, including yourself, John, that you're always welcome down there, and all the fans want to see you. So it's really great to see everybody.
And I think the lads know that as well. All the ex-Rocks or the old-time Rocks or vet Rocks, whatever you want to call them, I think they all know that. I think they all know that as soon as you turn up, you get that welcome, you get that feel. Which sometimes, like, you know, if I was to, horribly, if I was to go back to Havant, okay, I most probably wouldn't get that.
No.
And yeah, I played at Havant mostly just as many games as I played for Bognor. Okay, but it's much more of a community feel about the club and a friendly atmosphere about the club. So I think traditionally that's why I think ex-players really do like coming back to the lane.
Oh, that's good to hear, John. It's now time for the quick fire Rocks players round. Instead of direct choices between players like we do with fans, I want you to just give me the name of the first Bognor player that springs to mind. Your choice is at the ready, John, okay?
Ready.
Are you ready? Here we go. Best dressed.
Oh, crikey. You put me on the spot. Best dressed. Jodie Rowland's always turned out quite nicely.
Most serious.
Can you nominate yourself? Because I was quite serious.
Players have before,
room,
yeah.
Yeah, in the dressing room, I was quite serious. I was very, very focused.
Okay. Biggest appetite.
Ooh, Craig Stoner.
Best athlete.
Guy Rutherford could run forever.
Most scruffy.
Guy Rutherford.
Best friend in the dressing room.
Oh, I suppose Graham Mariner would have got that for me first time round.
Okay. Most reliable.
Burmy was, 9 out of 10 most weeks.
Yeah. Most skillful.
Ooh. Good one. Dave Piper for a fullback had some tricks. Okay, so Dave Piper.
Okay. Best crosser.
Jeff Cooper.
Okay. Best passer.
I think Russ Burtonshaw for me.
Okay.
Russell Burtonshaw.
Best hairdo.
Best head then, crikey. That's a random one. Where have you got that from?
I don't know.
Um, um, who used to like to? Crikey. I tell you, Mickey Pullen had a hell of a look at the old pictures of Mickey Pullen's perm. Perm and tash. Look at that. That's a hairdo.
Best beard.
That's a new thing. See, everyone has beards. We didn't have
Yeah,
beards
they
when I
didn't have
played.
them, did they? Really?
Not really. Not many of us had beards. There was a few tashes flying around, and Mickey Pullen had a dodgy tash. So I think we'll call mine a tash. The best tash, Mickey Pullen.
Okay. Best attitude.
Always first in all the runs, the Pullen twins, both Mickey and Paul. Always first.
Okay. Biggest bookworm.
Oh.
David Birmingham struggled on this one.
Yeah, no. In fairness, it was card schools. On the coaches, it was cards.
Yeah.
So it didn't tend to be books. So I suppose any of the management team, they'd be down the front with their head in a book, trying to not watch what's going on at the back, basically. So, yeah. So let's call it any of the management team.
Most nervous before a game.
Difficult one. So I suppose somebody like Mark Bird used to be quite nervous before a game. You know, sort of seemed to be really, really quiet and quite nervous before he went out. So yeah, Birdie. Let's go with Mark Bird.
Okay, these next 6 options are quite generic. Best striker.
Been a few, but can I name 2 or just one?
Yeah, you can name 2.
Okay, so Joe Blotchell in my first period there, Jason Pryor, okay, recently.
Yeah. Best midfielder.
Birmingham, I think, gets that. I think Birmingham should have been a top pro.
Yeah. Best defender.
I'll give that to Graham Mariner, I think.
Yeah. And then best goalkeeper.
Ali Sperring. Alistair Sperring. Okay, should have been pros. Peter Shilton's number understudy at Southampton when I first started. Top draw.
Yeah. And the last 2 is best coach.
Can I go? Am I allowed to go 2 again?
Yeah.
Okay, so Dennis Proby taught me lots. Okay.
Yeah.
And Dave Thomas, when he came and did a bit with us later on, taught me lots as well. So
Okay.
yeah, so those 2 there.
And then the final one, best football mind.
Got to be the gaffer, isn't it? It's got to be Pricey. I think people moan about him, but I don't think you get much more knowledge than what he's got up top. I mean, you know, you have to admire what he's got. So yeah, give it to Pricey.
He seems to know his stuff, doesn't he, Jack?
Yeah, definitely. You can't be involved in a club for as long as he's been involved at that club, okay, and the FA, and without knowing football. He knows football inside out.
Yeah. You went on to play for Havant, Newport, Isle of Wight, Eastbourne Borough and Selsey during your career, John. What would you say were your best experiences playing for those sides away from Nyewood Lane?
Well, you missed one out there a little bit, actually. I played not a lot of people know this. Okay, I played in the States for a little while. So out in America, I played up for a team called Bridgeport. So that was really good fun. I was out there for about 18 months playing out there. So that was really good. But as we mentioned earlier, I think winning the league at Newport, Isle of Wight, and captaining the sides of the league was mostly up there, because I think that's an incredible achievement for any team to win a league. But what made this was a little bit more special was we actually went unbeaten at home all year. So we were unbeaten at home all year, and we went unbeaten since Christmas, okay, for the second half of the season as well, anywhere. That was home and away. And we were miles off the top of the table at the time. And I always remember we went 9 games at the end of the season where we kept clean sheets, 9 games on the trot. So for a defender, that's always the thing you're trying to do, keep a clean sheet. And we went into the last game of the season. We were a point in front, okay, and we were playing Chelmsford, and they were in second. And it was a winner-take-all game at Chelmsford. We were away at Chelmsford, okay, and we'd never got anything up there. We hadn't got any results up there at all. And I remember we went to the game and we won 1-0 to win the league, okay, and that was just, yeah, so that always sticks in your mind, winning the league and how you win the league. So for me, most probably that's top for them, yeah.
Was that your main aim as a defender, to get those clean sheets and not let any goals in, or was it just a case of winning the game?
Absolutely, definitely. I mean, if you knew you kept a clean sheet, you got a point at least.
Yeah,
So you ask any defender, any goalkeeper, okay, it's much more about what we do at our end. Okay, I mean, strikers and attacking players will always talk about how we always score more goals than them.
yeah,
Okay, and that's why you'll see defenders get really, really frustrated and angry. You can be winning the game 4-0, okay, and coasting the game, but then somebody switches off and you can see the goal, and you'll still see the defenders get angry because it's about a clean sheet. For
yeah,
us, it's all about the clean sheet.
yeah, definitely. When I look at Havant and Eastbourne Borough, particularly, John, they've always been a very, well, particularly nowadays, very ambitious clubs. They're willing to spend money to get a quick reward. Did you find this ambition whilst you was at those clubs?
I suppose when I joined Havant, I mean, I joined Havant first, and they just got promoted from the Wessex League. So it wasn't something that maybe they were looking to go on and immediately do great things straight away. But yeah, they were ambitious. They definitely wanted to make sure that they stayed in the Southern League at the time. And it was mostly a tough time for Bognor at the time as well, because we just avoided relegation. It was just after I came back from America. And we just avoided relegation. And bless Jack, I mean, we spoke and we, players speak about, signing other players and budgets and everything like this. And at the time, Bognor was struggling a little bit, and haven't seemed to be a progressive side and seemed to be going places. So that's when I joined Havant. So they were ambitious, yeah. I joined Eastbourne on the back of leaving Newport when Newport uh, brought in a new manager, and the new manager didn't fancy me as much, which is fine. That's what happens with managers. And I think I joined Eastbourne at the time when they were looking to go places, and maybe they went too quickly, and because we got promoted the first season I was there, and I don't think they ever expected to do that. And we players talk about contracts, and I had a clause in my contract that if we got promoted, we'd sit down and renegotiate. But they didn't do that. They reneged on the contract, and they basically just offered me the same contract as I was on previously. So I was not the youngest player in the world, and when I shake somebody's hand and give my word, if I say I'm going to join somebody, that's what I do. Okay, and I've always been brought up that way. So for them to sort of break that, which is why I changed. So that's when I rejoined the Rocks. So I think most clubs are ambitious. I don't think any club would ever turn around and go, we don't want to do as well as possible. But other clubs chase it maybe a little bit harder than others. And we've seen over the years that some clubs chase it way too hard and don't have the finances to do that.
I mean, Bognor have been obviously renowned for living within their means, so to speak. And you look at other clubs, sometimes you think, are they doing it just for the building up a team for a limited time? Are their hearts really in it? Whereas at Bognor, you've got people there that want to see the club succeed for a long period of time. Okay, we might have to look at youth a bit more than other teams, but I think we're generally successful over the years.
I think that's a really, really good assumption, Liam. I think that's a really fair assumption as well, because I think some teams, and we've seen them, and we can all sit here and name teams, even in the Premier League, in the professional game, but especially at non-league level as well, that chase something very immediate success and get something very immediate, but then the next 2 or 3 seasons have nowhere to go because the budget expectations are already there. I think Bognor do it the right way, and it's a really, sometimes that's a difficult way because maybe supporters and fans alike maybe don't quite get that, because what Bognor do is they'll get success and they'll go to the next level, and that next level is a huge jump, and then they won't break the bank to then go out and sign 1-2 players, okay, because that doesn't guarantee that you're going to stay there. Okay, it is about trying to build and make sure that they do it properly, and I think that's the right way to do it. I think there's always a ceiling for clubs and a level that clubs will be really safe at and compete at. And I think Bognor is most probably where it is at the moment, because we've all seen to go to that next level is a huge jump, and it's a difficult jump to maintain. But it's not saying it can't be done. Okay, if you've got a lot of good crop of younger players coming through, then who says you can't do it? But it is really difficult.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the clubs that are in the National League South nowadays are going full time, and I just fear that we'll be competing against some of those teams that are full time outfits, and it's difficult to compete at that level with a semi pro club like Bognor. What do you think we need to do to get to that next level?
Maybe get a nice big shake from Arab to come in, an Arab shake to come
Yeah,
in and invest lots and lots of money so that you can go full time and compete. To be honest with you, the more and more clubs that go full time, okay, it's going to make it harder and harder. Okay, I think budget wise, unless you've got a very, very wealthy backer who is established and isn't a, how can we say, a fly by night, a one night backer, you know, that comes in, that's got the football club at interest, okay, at heart. But to do that, I think is really difficult. But you know, Bognor has always been a club that sustains itself,
yeah,
and I think that's great. I think that's really what it needs to keep doing, because I think that's mostly what makes the club feel like it does. Whereas all of a sudden, if you've got a wealthy backer, and I'm sure Jack would love a wealthy backer to come in and give him lots of money to spend, but realistically, what, you know, that's not going to happen. So I think they just keep going as they're going and be at that level. And that's not saying that you wouldn't go up and succeed at the next level, but we all know if you did go up, okay, that next level to then be at the top end of that table is really, really difficult. To
yeah.
be middle to lower end, okay, is okay, but then you get the frustration from the fans saying that we should be striving to be the top end of the table, and then, as you said earlier, without that budget, that's really, really difficult.
Yeah, certainly, John. And you're always a tough player on the pitch for the Rocks, John. But who would you say in the Bognor dressing room had some toughness to them? Someone you wouldn't want to mess with, perhaps?
I love that question. That's a great question, because one player springs to mind, and this is like you'll get things as ex-footballers. You will always remember certain things. And I remember my first ever training session with the first team at Bognor, and Thursday nights, okay, turning up training, and I remember we were doing this small-sided game, and Dave Paul absolutely smashed me. And Dave liked to tackle as well. Trust me, he loved to tackle. And he absolutely smashed me. And I think I was about 15. And he's come through me. And I was always taught by my dad, you never show anybody that they've hurt you. You get up and you carry on. Okay, you don't show any pain or fear. And Paul, he smashed me. And it was a proper tackle. And I remember I mostly did a somersault and landed. And I thought, just get up, get up, get up. So I got up and carried on playing. And I just remember later on, Dave ran past me and he just tapped me on the shoulder and went, you'll do all right, lad. You know, so like that. I think I earned his respect because I just didn't make a big thing out of it. I just got up and carried on playing. And I think it was like, after a little while, I mean, you sort of saw it with Dave, and that was almost like his initiation for any young lad coming in, that he was going to coach you, and like you sort of, you know, and how you reacted was, you know, sort of almost a way of like seeing if you're going to be accepted. But yeah, so I think Dave loved to tackle. I think there's, yeah. So yeah, Dave Paul. I'm just going to stick with that one. I think that's the story. Stick with Dave.
Yeah, sounds like he was a real hard nut on the training pitch, and I hope he's doing well.
I'm sure if you ask anybody, okay, when they watch Dave play, he did like a tackle. He did like a tackle.
You say you had two spells with Bognor, and I remember your second spell, John. That's when I didn't see you obviously in your initial spell. But could you remind me when you joined the Rocks for the second time? Was it 2003-04 season? I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was indeed. So it was that season. Then I came back, and as I say, I came back after leaving Eastbourne, and I think I must have been 35, 36. And remember coming back and looking really, really forward to the season, because it was almost like I knew that I didn't have many seasons left in me. So, you know, I trained really hard and made sure I was fit. And we got off to a really good start. And it was not an easy season, but like I was playing really, really well. And yeah, it just felt like I'd come back and I felt at home. And, you know, when you sort of just turn up and you feel at ease about turning up to a game and being on the pitch. And I came back and was playing well. And then I got the injury, which really hampered that season, the second part of that season. So, bit of a shame, but never mind. It happens to all of us. And I suppose at that time, as I say, being a mid-30s, so I was always going to pick up a few injuries somewhere along the way.
Was that your last season, John, or did you go to Selsey after Bognor?
No, so I played, that was my last season at that level. So my last season sort of playing Ryman League and above. Then I went into the county league, so I went and played down at Selsey and started getting into coaching and management a little bit more, because it meant that obviously the football was a little bit, for me, it was a little bit easier. although because I was getting that little bit older, so I maybe didn't have that turn of pace. I was never the quickest anyway, but when you're getting that little bit older, you've got to step down a little bit because you can't keep doing it and keep doing it at that level. So I also went into the county league from there.
That's great, John. And off the pitch, you've also been managing teams. You were at Wick for a time with Carl Stabler. How did this all happen for you? And what were your memories from working at the Dynamos?
Yeah, so this was really about playing when I sort of finished playing more than anything else, and stopped playing a little bit and came away from it. And Carl then said to me I knew quite a few of the players that had gone over there. And Carl said, do you fancy come over and do some coaching? And I hadn't done much coaching, in fairness. I mean, I'd done my badges and that, but wasn't something I was really looking to get involved in. But I knew the players in the dressing room, and Carl had said to me about coming over. He said, because Pricey said, you've been in the dressing room of a lot of good clubs and you understand football, he said, and I'd like you just around the club a little bit. But then the more and more you get involved, you end up taking the coaching and doing the coaching. So that's sort of how it happened, really. I knew Carl through numerous sort of encounters football-wise, so it was nice to be contacted, and Carl obviously said he respected what I'd done in football and wanted me to come over and help him out.
That's great, that, John. And then in March 2012, you joined Pagham Football Club as manager at Nyewood Lane. How did this all start for you, and what was the experience like for you there?
Same story, really. Carl was managing and I was coaching at the club, and then Carl's work commitments got a little bit harder and he couldn't free himself up so much to be manager. So the club then just basically said to me, like, Carl's going to step down. You've been doing the coaching. Do you want to take on the management? So I was like, well, it's my first foray into management as such. So I was like, yeah, got nothing to lose. Let's do it. But it's quite difficult. It's quite a difficult transition going from coaching where you're very much one of the players and one of the lads, and you can, you're almost the one that puts your arm around them. And when the manager makes those tough calls, you're the one that puts your arm around. So, just keep training hard. You'll be okay. You'll get back in. To all of a sudden, pretty much overnight, having to make those decisions and step away from the players, because you're only ever friends with the 11 that you start. Everybody else hates you. Okay, and that's quite normal. And I'm sure Jack and Robbie will say exactly the same things. The 11 players that start, they're your best buddies. Okay, the ones that you've left out and had to make those tough decisions, most people don't like you that much. And so that was mostly the toughest transition, going from there to actually sort of making all those tough calls and leaving players out. So, but I've got quite broad shoulders, and I hopefully always made the decisions that I thought was right for the football club. So
that's so great, John. And when you moved there, it was obviously agreed that, like you say, Carl Stabler moved to sort of director of football role. Did you have a good relationship with Carl throughout that time?
Yeah, I mean, Carl was mainly around the county league scene, so he managed quite a few county league sides and been very successful and won the county league numerous times with teams. So he knew that league inside and out. For me, it was very different going from what was quite a discipline background. Okay, at Bognor, you were sort of contracted, you were expected to train, you were very much football was the focus of all of it. To going into a county league side and county league where, well, maybe that's not as disciplined and players sometimes aren't available through work commitments or family commitments or something like that. Whereas at the senior level, you would always be available. That wasn't a choice. And then often you would try and plan sessions and training sessions and you turn up for training and you might only have 5 or 6 players that have turned up for various reasons in the county league, whereas you wouldn't have that at the Ryman League. You'd have players that would be there at training. So that was the big difference. But Carl was great. Carl was a really nice guy, and as I said, I had lots and lots of experience at that level. But that side of the 2 different leagues was very, very difficult to accept.
Yeah, and you also had Darren Pearce as your assistant at Pagham, John. Seemed like you had your team that you wanted around you. Do you think this is crucial to running and managing a team like that?
Yeah, I'm sure any manager will tell you. I'm sure Robbie will tell you exactly the same at the moment. That you need the people around you that you trust. Darren I've known for years. I mean, Darren and I grew up together. So Darren's my best mate outside of football as well. So, and Darren came from a similar background to me, as in playing at a higher level. So it was very much about knowing what we expected from each other, okay, and from the players as well. And we put some quite high demands on the players at county league level. But I also have people like Wes Hallett who would do all the goalkeeping coaches for me as well. a guy called Dave Reynolds who would do the fitness side of it. So I had 3 or 4 lads that I really, really trusted. That I think as a management, you have to have that team to make sure you're together.
And obviously, Wes Hallett's now at Bognor with the
Sure.
goalkeeping coaching there, so he's doing a great job. It seems at the time Pagan were looking to move into the then Ryman South Division, but this meant having to reach the top 2 positions in the league. I think it's still the same now. Is it still true that clubs, even in the top 2, have to apply to get promoted from the county divisions?
Yeah, I mean, I think what happens in the county league, as far as I understand, I think it's still the same. As I say, I haven't been involved for a couple of years, but I think it's still the same that if you're in and around the promotion places at Christmas, you have to then apply to go in the league into like the next league up. So that costs clubs money straight away, and then that's a commitment to ground grading and having the ground graders come to you and make sure that your ground's up to scratch. That costs money as well. If you have to then do the ground improvements, okay, that then costs money. So yeah, so like the first year I was there, we were flying. We were playing really well, had a good squad. We were always in and around the top 2. So at that time, we applied, invested the money to obviously do the application. I think we just slipped away, and we should have won the league that year, but we slipped away and finished 3rd. And so yeah, so there's a lot of revenue that clubs at that level have to spend out, and you're still not guaranteed to go up. So it's quite a weird situation that instead of saying, well, the top 2 automatically go up if you meet ground criteria, and there's none of this application scene, but no, I think that's pretty much it's still the same now.
Yeah, definitely, John. Away from football, you're working with the NHS in your line of work. Tell us a bit about that. How's that going for you?
Yeah, so we've been really, really busy, obviously, with everything that's gone on. I work as my official job title is a bit of a mouthful. I am the corporate and community fundraiser for Love Your Hospital. Love Your Hospital is the dedicated charity for St Richard's and Worthing Hospital. And what we do is we raise funds. We're only a small team of 4 of us. And we've raised in excess of £10 million over the last 10 years. And we're a charity that goes to sort of try and raise funds for anything that's above and beyond what we would class as our core funding. So we get a pot of money from the government to supply our services as such. But we'll try and make sure we earn a bit more money and make sure we get a bit more money in to make sure that our patients and our staff have the best experience in our hospital. So very, very relevant at the moment. We've had a lot of community support recently. So yeah, it's a tough job, but it's a job I love doing. I mean, I'm really, really lucky. I like getting up to work every day and going in because I see the reward at the end of it. So for us, it's an incredible job and well worthwhile.
Yeah, certainly a rewarding job, that, John. You arranged with Bognor Regis Town recently and the Supporters Club a meeting with the players, staff and children at the hospital. I think it was St Richard, wasn't it? This was certainly great PR for the club, and at the time, at what better time than Christmas to make it all happen?
Well, what happened, how it came about, Liam, was we are lucky enough to have a link, as I say, with Brighton Football Club, and the players in the first team players and the management come into Worthing Hospital every year around Christmas time. So as I said earlier, I work with both hospitals. So I'm thinking, well, the kids at Worthing get this, but the kids at St Richard's don't get anything. So I'm then thinking, well, the most senior club locally, to St Richard's Hospital is Bognor. So I'm thinking, well, my links, why don't I just do the same thing with Bognor? So obviously I contacted Ian Guppy, and I know Ian quite well, and said to him that would this be something that the guys would be interested in? And he spoke with Jack and Robbie and the players, and it's something we've now done for the last 2 years. So we've actually done it for 2 years. And the guys come in, and I'm sure they'll all tell you, okay, that I think there's about 20 players this year with management. They come in, and it's absolutely awe-inspiring, honestly, to see the kiddies that are, how can I say, maybe not so well and quite poorly, and have to often come into hospital numerous times, to come in and see the cheer that they can bring by just giving them a little. Actually, I forgot somebody there as well. Rocky always comes in as well. Rocky comes in for the kiddies as well. But to see the cheer that they can bring to the children's faces and the mums and dads' faces that are there as well. Okay, just by coming in and giving out gifts at Christmas, it's awe-inspiring, but it's also very, very humbling, because it very, very much makes you realise that, sometimes we'll moan about things, but sometimes we haven't got it so bad. There's a lot of people in there that have got things quite quite bad at the moment, and that are really, really positive. So I'm really glad I helped the club do that, because it's not. I don't even think it's about the publicity for the club. I think it's more about them coming in and actually experiencing and seeing what a difference they can make with a gesture that's really quite small, which is an evening of their time, and that's incredible for them to do.
No, so I think it's a really good idea, John. And is this hopefully, with the coronavirus settling down, hopefully over the course of the year, is it looking likely to happen at Christmas time this year?
It's something we'd love to do. Obviously, it's links that we build with clubs and with communities and businesses around St Richard's and Worthing Hospital that we're looking to obviously maintain. So I'd love to think that we, hopefully by December, maybe in a position where we can look to do something again. But if not, if we can't do it this year, it's definitely something we'll look to do the following year. I had some charity events that I'd spoken with Ian about using Seasons as a venue, about doing some quiz nights and some charity events for the charity. So that's something that, as we say, once this coronavirus is and the lockdown has been lifted a little bit, is something that we'll be looking to renew. So hopefully with the support of the Rock supporters and all the people around the club, it's something we can rebuild really quickly.
Yeah, definitely, John. What would you say is your greatest challenges of you and your role in the NHS in general and nowadays?
I think we all know that it's a massively underfunded organisation, but it's an organisation that will never be replicated, and we need to look after it, because if we don't, it will very soon fall down. But I'm not going to get into politics and about funding and everything like that. I think the biggest thing for me is for everybody to understand that they can be involved and they can help the hospital out through people like myself who help with the charity. And if anybody's got any ideas or suggestions or any ways they want to help with raising funds or doing something like that, just contact me. Anybody can contact me. They've got my number. My number's, you'll have it at the football club. Everyone's got it. And yeah, I mean, because I think we want to make sure that our hospital is the best for our loved ones when they need it. I mean, you're local, Liam. You're in Littlehampton. Okay, I'm local. My family live in Chichester. Okay, so it's our local hospital. So let's make sure it's looked after and it's there for when our family and our loved ones need it.
Definitely, John. You told me, obviously, you're saying now that you're representing Lavant FC in the West Sussex League alongside your son, Ben. What is the story behind you joining this team?
Funny one, really. I'm sure loads of dads have had this where their sons carry on playing football, and before you know it, they're saying to me, "Dad, can you come and do a coaching session with us?" Because obviously, with my football background, and Ben knew I could do a coaching session. So I was like, okay, well, I went up and did a few coaching sessions, and then before I knew it, they were like short on a Saturday. So it was like, "Dad, can you just sit on the bench for me?" And then before you know it, you're in the team and you're playing, and I'm captain of the team, and we've won the league, and we're like, oh my God, I'm doing this at 50 years old, and what am I doing? Rolling out every Saturday to go and play football again. But I love the game. I love being in the dressing room. So yeah, I mean, it's down to my son really that I got back involved. Thanks, Ben. That I was, ending up back on the pitch again. But I shouldn't moan really, because that's what I like being. So.
Are you proud of Ben and how he's doing in the football world? And can you see him representing the Green Army sometime in the future?
I'm really proud of Ben. Ben's a great lad, and he's a total credit to the way he's been brought up, and he's a polite young man, and totally different footballer to me. A lot more technical, far more skillful than I am. But I think, could I see him playing for the Rocks? To be honest with you, no. Okay, he's one of those lads. He's far more laid back than I am. He's quite happy playing at the level he's playing at. With his friends and his mates around him. I think it's much more about the social for Ben, about having his mates around him and making sure he's enjoying it. So no, shame. I would like to have seen him play for the Rocks, but yeah. I don't think he will.
What is your, as you said, your role there? You're coaching as well as playing. Is that right at Lavant?
Yeah, well, actually, this year I'm player manager this year, so I'm still going to sign on and play, but try and just help the club out a little bit. Because my commitments at work obviously dictate when I can play and when I can't play. because I tend to work quite strange hours with my fundraising. So, but I tend to play most Saturday afternoons. That tends to be okay. But yeah, so I do a bit of the coaching and the managing on the side as well. So.
Okay. What would you say has been the greatest challenges for you whilst playing at Lavant compared to your days at Bognor?
Having to pay match subs. What's that about? I've never paid match subs. Okay, no, only joking. Yeah. I mean, I'm one of the lads there. I'm the same as everyone else, and the lads are all committed and want to win games and enjoy games. I suppose, obviously, at my age, trying to keep fit is an issue. Trying to keep as fit as I can. Playing surfaces. Okay, I'm used to playing on the carpet like Nyewood Lane. Okay, and trust me, the pitches I'm playing on at the moment are not good. But realistically, I look at every game I play now, Liam. Every Saturday I can get out on the pitch. It's a bonus because realistically, it could be my last game because I know that I'm getting to that age where I've got to stop. But every game's a bonus at the moment. So every minute I'm on the pitch is a bonus to me.
Oh, that's great, John. And as people may or may not already know, the club has development plans in the pipeline already happening, of course, to improve the ground with a new stand, seasons covered end, toilet block, new floodlights, tannoy system, and new changing facilities. You can donate to the cause by visiting www.crowdfunder.co.uk and search for You Are Our Rocks. John, I know you have donated to the cause, so many thanks for that. What are your thoughts on the new developments?
Well, first and foremost, you want to welcome for the donation. I mean, I couldn't think of anything better to give it to. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I think I've seen the ground develop over the years. I mean, from obviously when I started playing in the early 80s to the club, with my dad helping putting seats in from the old Wembley. We grabbed some old Wembley seats and managed to get them in the old stand and stuff like that. So, from all that time I'm really excited to see how it's going to look. And the new vision, obviously, for the club going forward. If we can make any improvements, obviously, to make it a better place to watch football, then that's got to be good. Yeah, I mean, it's an exciting time. I mean, I just can't wait to get back there and watch a game. Let's be honest, we're all missing football. We can all sit and watch the Premier League, which has been a bit of a damp squib start. I mean, but yeah, for me, it's about getting back and watching a proper game of football, as I call it.
Yeah, we all can't wait, John. And talking of grounds, what are some of the most memorable and favourite grounds you've visited over your playing time in football?
Oh, as I said earlier, when we talked earlier, Liam, about playing at the reserve level and pro level, I mean, I've been lucky enough to play a lot of the pro grounds, maybe from here right up to the Midlands. I don't think there's many that I've missed out on. I've been really lucky like that. Playing surface-wise, I suppose Portman Road, Ipswich Town was absolutely incredible. It's like one of the best grounds for playing surface. Non-league wise, I mean, Nyewood Lane is as good a surface you're ever going to get at non-league level. I think that for me at non-league level. But for me, I used to love any old ground where they used to hate me, where they used to like give me a hard time. That may sound a bit weird, but the old grounds where the crowds are close to you and they give you a bit of stick and grounds that come to mind like that. I mean, it's a weird one. I never liked the ground, but places like Whitehawk, it's a horrible place to go to, horrible sloping ground. But for me as a player, it's like, right, we're going to come here and we're going to get a result. We're going to show you. Yeah, so there's a few, but I mean, I suppose other grounds, I mean, Weymouth and Dorchester, nice places to go and play football, non-league wise. Met Police was always a beautiful pitch to play on. Arsenal, any of the pro clubs, all the pro clubs were good grounds to play at. But yeah, so there's a few for you.
Yeah, they all sound great, John. So what is the secret behind still playing football at the age of 52? Any tips for people who want to still play the game at that time in their lives?
Not tips for anybody that wants to play. Give up and enjoy your Saturday afternoons. Don't play when they're that age, because every time I walk off the pitch, I ache and I think, what am I doing? But I suppose I just love the game, Liam. I absolutely love the game. I love the atmosphere of the dressing room. If you haven't experienced it, if you haven't been in a football dressing room, it's difficult to explain, but it's the 15, 20 lads that are in that dressing room going to war every Saturday afternoon together. And yeah, I don't know. I suppose I can't replicate that. There's nothing else you can do to replicate it. So my advice is just keep playing, guys, and enjoy every minute you can play, because you're a long time retired and you're a long time not playing football. So it is a young man's sport really, but just enjoy it and keep playing.
I think the secret really is to have the passion. You still got to have the passion. As long as you've got the passion, you can do anything.
Yeah, I think that's very much. Yeah, I think some people are more driven than others, and for me, I still love the combat of a Saturday afternoon of maybe having an 18, 19, 20-year-old lad calling me old and fat and slow, and still knowing that I'm going to get the better of him on a Saturday afternoon. So for me, that's great, because they maybe these young lads don't know that I've played a bit of football, and they think they're in for a bit of an easy game because they see me sort of like waddle out there, and maybe by the end of it, they've learnt a bit more respect, and they're actually going, well, actually, yeah, he wasn't bad. So, yeah, so it tends to be all right.
They get a bit of a shock then, John, when they come up against you.
Well, I get a bit of a shock when I tackle them like I used to tackle, so because that's not really part of the game nowadays, tackling, but I still struggle not to throw a tackle in every now and again. So
It all sounds good. All sounds brilliant, John. And if given the chance, would you ever return as coach or manager at Bognor Regis Town if the chance arose?
Well, I'm not sure whether that chance will ever arrive, but if the phone call came, I couldn't refuse it. How could you refuse that? You like, what's your club, and you got an offer like that? Yeah, of course I would. I don't think I could turn that phone call down.
That sounds good, John. And as a footballer, how would you most like to be remembered?
I think I said it earlier. I think the thing for me is honest and hard working. Because I think if I pull a shirt on and I go out onto the pitch and everyone can see that I've given my best, and that's all I can ever give. Okay, then for me that's all I could ever ask for, really. On the pitch, I'd like to be remembered as horrible, really, but off the pitch, I'm quite a nice guy, really. But I have that white line syndrome that when I go across that white line, I'm not nice to play against. But I come off the pitch, I'll shake your hand, I'll buy you a beer in the bar afterwards, and everything's good. But for 90 minutes, yeah, not a very nice guy. But yeah, honest and hard working. I think that's the thing for me. Always gave everything for the shirt, desire to win. So something like that.
That's good. But Burmy said the thing about him having a separate mindset as soon as he got onto the pitch compared to away from the pitch and after the game or before the game. So it seems like, I don't know if that mindset is still apparent in clubs, but I think it is kind of going away, the sort of passion and loyalty to a club. And I spoke briefly about it to Burmy, and he seems to think it's sort of going away a bit. And there isn't so many players that are thinking, right, I've got to do it for this badge, I've got to do it for this club.
I think that's a really valid point, and Burmy, I would class as one of those players that has that similar mindset to myself. And I think if you asked him, I think we'd go down the list and we'd come up with some names that were exactly the same. Because I think that used to be the case. That used to be, and it used to be that respect element as well, that you'd go on the pitch and for 90 minutes, I mean, I remember playing against Burmy and for teams against Mickey, and for 90 minutes, we'd hate each other. Absolutely hate each other, because we'd do everything for our club, okay, to win that game of football. Okay, but as soon as you come off the pitch, okay, we'd be the best of mates. Okay, we shake hands, and it's all about 90 minutes doing whatever you've got to do to win that game for your club. Okay, and I'll hold my hand up. I've done some horrible things on the football pitch to try and win the game, but it is you flick that switch. Well, I call it a white line syndrome. I walk across that white line and don't get in my way, because if you do, I'm coming through you to get the ball and get to be winning. Okay, but as soon as I walk off the pitch, it's all done and dusted, because it's just battle for 90 minutes. Okay, and I think that's how I've always been brought up, and I'm sure that's how Burmy would say he's been brought up as well. Okay, and other players have been brought up the same. But yeah, I don't think you see that as much. I'll agree with him there. I don't think you see it as much.
No. I know a lot of Rocks fans remember you as a player, John, and they listen to this podcast. So what would be your final message to Bognor fans to end this interview at this time?
Well, thank you for some wonderful memories. And, I mean, I've had loads and loads of good memories at the club. And if you see me at a match, okay, come up and say hello, and feel free to buy me a coffee, because, always need to keep warm. So, yeah, I love reminiscing, but thanks for all the nice memories, guys, and all the happy times of my football career and looking after my family like you've done. So thank you very much.
And thank you to you, John. Many thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate you spending the time to tell more fans about your career so far. Thank you for all the efforts over the years for Bognor as a footballer. I know I speak for all the fans, and I wish you well with your time at Lavant, and still playing at 52 is amazing, I must say. John Price truly is a Bognor legend. And it's great to see you down Nyewood Lane, and well done on all of your hard work with the NHS charity work. It would be great to catch up again soon with you to see how your life is going off the pitch, with all the hard work you're putting in. How does that sound for you?
Absolutely great, Liam. I mean, yeah, just whenever. If ever you guys need me to come and help out with anything, just give me a call because I'm always around. I'll always be willing to do that.
Brilliant. Thanks, John. And again, a big thanks to Rock's legendary centre-back, John Price, for being my guest today, and getting the chance to chat with him was great fun for me, and I appreciate him taking the time. You can check out John at Lavant playing football in the West Sussex League, and you might see him at Nyewood Lane when he is free. If you would like to get your say in an upcoming episode of On the Rocks, then please contact me on Twitter at Liam Goodley. Again, visit our media and travel partners, Mitchell's Travel, at themitchells.notjusttravel.com, or call 01243 939 555 to find out more about their services today. And don't forget to quote Rocks 1883 whilst getting a great deal. This has been an On the Rocks podcast production brought to you by the BRTFC Supporters Club. Thanks for listening. Stay safe. Up the Rocks.